Hello, sweet beans. I'm going to go over the basics of Substance Painter today. I'm going to go over how to open a pre-existing project or make a new one. I'm also going to go over the controls and the basic management of layers and materials. And then finally also paint on a Mayu base. That way you can see me work and see how I'd go about it. Okay, to start, let's go over opening a project. So for that, you'd want to open up Substance Painter. Now, for this example, I already have one open. If you're going to make a new one, I'll go over that shortly. But when you open up Substance Painter, you're always going to get this little home screen. If you already know what you're doing, you can just close. But there are tutorials on here, online documentation, and everything that you would probably need in the future. But for now, close that. So, before we even get into anything, I want to show you how to open a project, start one, and overall just save it as well. So on the top left here, right under File, there is New, where if you wanted to make a new project, is where you would do it. Hit that. It'll let you select your file. So for example, here's mine. I have like just a bunch of random stuff I can open. You can import an FBX, which is a file type. You can then also do the template. For our work, if you're watching this video, you're probably wondering how to do stuff for avatars and so on for VRChat or Unity. You'd want the Unity HD pipeline renderer. Most of this you can just keep by default. You do not need to touch any of this. It's going to be more important to touch all of this stuff later in a more advanced settings, but for now you don't need this. But since I don't want to open up a new project, I'm just going to cancel this. Going back to File, you can also open any file. Again, it'll just pull up any files that you have. I don't save any, except for the ones that are in Substance Painter. This is my own custom file folder, by the way, so if you don't have this, don't get confused. But I have a bunch of projects and base files in here, so if I wanted to open up, let's say, like a Wicker Beast or an Ardo Dragon, I can also open up these here just by clicking and hitting open. But again, don't want to open these because I already have mine in the background. Then you have close or Alt F4. You don't need to use this function. You could just hit the X on the top right. Doesn't matter. And then save. This is really important. Substance Painter will save for you automatically. There will be a little time thing. Right here, in fact. This will automatically save your progress and make it as a temporary file. That way, if your stuff crashes or anything like that happens, you still have a relatively recent backup. Though, if you want to, you can also just manually save. Anytime you exit, it also gives you the prompt to save as well. So next is the part that you're going to need. This is going to be the basic requirement after doing all your work. Export textures, or Control-Shift-E. It'll pop up this screen. Some of these settings will be different because depending on which project you're using, the original author will change things. But you want to make sure that output directory, just hit R. Or set it to a custom space that you want it to be. I have it by default where it will normally do this, but if you keep getting errors upon trying to export, usually it's because whoever owned the Substance Painter file before you had VARs set to a custom destination, and of course your computer doesn't have that, so it doesn't know where to go. So always make sure that this is by the default. Then output template. These are, again, a lot of different things you want. I will always keep mine either document channels, normal, AO with alpha or no alpha. It doesn't really matter too much unless you get into the more advanced stuff. The rest of this you can kind of keep the same. This stuff is the texture size as well. So like, for example, if you would like to export your textures and have them be at a lower resolution without sacrificing too much detail, you'd want to export them at a certain file size. Note that it will still make them look really cruddy, though just less of that effect. Then, if you click on body or lens for the Mayu, that's what it's going to be, but it can be different things for your project as well. This is where it shows you all of this. These are all the different exports that you're going to be able to have. Though, if you're only seeing like 4, again, you want to make sure that your output template is set to document channels, normal, and AO. Otherwise, you're only going to be getting the base color, normal, roughness, and I believe metal. So this is just everything that you're going to be able to have. This is for future. 90% of this you don't need. You're probably only going to need the top, the base color. And now that we've gone over that, let's go over how to actually move the camera. So, every single action you're going to need is with the Alt key. So hit Alt, middle mouse click, and you can move around. Alt left click allows you to rotate, and Alt right click allows you to zoom in and out, but you can also just use the middle mouse key, to zoom in and out. This should be the default for what you're going to see. I do not modify mine much. Though if you are not seeing certain things here, you can always go to Window, I believe. Yeah, Window in Views, and you can pull up different views. Everything that I have checkmarked here, you should probably have as well. It'll make your life a lot less easy. A lot easier. Now that we went over the basics of movement and moving around, you might end up at some point getting all the way over here. You can't find your thing. You know, it's completely gone. This has happened to me numerous times. What you're going to want to do, at the very top, viewport. And you want to click show entire mesh/path. This is going to bring you back to the middle. This has saved me countless times because I am a dunce. Now, let's go over the basics of the layers and materials. So, Substance Painter works just like any other art program that has layers. It'll be showing the topmost thing as a priority. So for example, on the right side here, here's all the layers. All of these are in different orders. If I were to move any of these around, it would start to mess with certain things. There's also the view. Like if I wanted to hide certain things, I could. Like I just hit the belly folder, and once it's done loading, we'll see what it's doing there. All it did was get rid of the belly button, I believe. Yeah, all it did was get rid of the belly button. But still, you can hide certain layers and organize them too. So, the next part is right above me, are the materials. By default, you'll see base materials. These give what you're working on texture, depth, and so on. And let's, for example, just to go over the basics of that, I'm gonna click on Fabric Nylon here. Let me put it up top so you can actually read it. And there are two ways to apply this in the most simplest form. I can either drag and drop it onto my said model, or I can bring it to the layer here. I like to bring it over to the layers. It makes it a little bit easier to work with. Now, you're going to see that it doesn't look like nylon or fabric or anything. It just looks red. That's because we're still base color at the very top here. You can drop down, and you can see a lot of different things. It's material, base color, roughness, shine, eye, audio link, pupils, outline. Some of these are very specific to just my character that I'm working on. There are different channels. But the bases that you're always going to have are normal, height, mesh, normal, roughness, and base color and material. So let's click on material. As you can see, it has lighting. This is where the other set of controls come in. Hit shift and right click. You hold them both and you can move the sun just left and right. This is great to see different lightings on how it's going to affect on your model. So for now, still want to point out, my character still looks like just a red blob. I'm moving this to the side because I'll talk about it later. So again, how should we fix this? Right click. Sorry, let me be more specific. If you've clicked off of this somehow, shape or form, you want to click back on your material. And then in this space, in where you can see here, right click. It gives you a bunch of different options. And as you can see in the material, that's where I want to go first. It only has color and roughness selected. You want to hit NRM or NURM. That is your normal map. As you can see, it suddenly gains detail. It doesn't look that good. As you can see, there are seams. That is because there are seams in the UV mapping and how it's projecting right now. The UV mapping, if I want to pull this back, is the character. It is where the software knows. It's basically a map telling you where certain things should go for the texture. Where certain colors choose to go on the character, essentially. You don't have to worry about this stuff now. If you get really into this, you're going to need to know how to make your own, but that's if you're learning Blender and so on, like modeling. The normal map, not normal map, I'm sorry. The UV map is very, very important because it can dictate how easy it is to paint and how much detail you can get. So first, let's just make this a little bit nicer. So, let's go back up top, projection, and try planar projection. This makes it a lot easier. You can personally try out any one you want. You don't have to do anything I am doing. You can experiment and learn. That's how I did it. Now, hardness. This makes it how hard it blends in between the mesh. So if I jack it all the way to the right, certain spots where it is doesn't blend in as much are a little bit harder. And then if I put it softer, it blends nicer. Tiling. Tiling is basically how big the image is. So take it, and I can put it to the left or right. It will definitely change the size. Just keep it right there. As you can see, it still has its detail, and it looks just fine. Now, let's go over a few more things. Roughness, all the way to the left. This will, as I will show you, you don't need to do this, I just want to show you it. The roughness channel is black. For the roughness channel, anything that is black will show more wet or like metallic, shiny as you would put it. And then all the way to the right is white. And if I go back to material, that is dry. Dry as all hell. Basically, this is a way for the software to understand how like wet something is, or how shiny, how metallic. Same thing with metallic. The metal map is the opposite as well, which I find a little amusing. Now it's going to put them back in the middle. If you don't have certain channels as well, I would like to point out that since it is a black and white map, you are able to paint on the character so that it's black and white, telling it where certain details should go. Like if I don't have a map channel, I will make a black and white map of the character. And a map, I keep saying that word. A map essentially just tells the software where something should go and how strong that effect is. Black is nothing. There's nothing there. It's not going to put anything there. White is the total amount that it will put, like 100%. And then everything in between is like less to more effect. So a grayscale. You can change colors of different things. It'll have this menu. Let me bring it up so it's easier to see. You can change certain colors if you wanted to. But just for that, that's it for now. Some materials, you can't do it like this, by the way. Some materials, if I were to put, for example, the stitches, let me drag it up, the stitches right here. If I were to bring it over here and let it load, excuse me for my computer's slowness. It will work, but as you can see, it's not exactly what you'd want. So in order to do that, let's delete that. You can click on it and hit delete, or you can right click and also remove certain things and delete them from here. So for this, we're going to click this paintbrush, it's add layer. All this is a simple layer. By default, you are given just the default brush. It's going to be white. It's going to have a color channel. I can just do that. Now, if you want to reverse your work, you can hit Control Z. And also, if you don't want it to be symmetrical, like that, you can remove the symmetry with this little button right here. It's going to be that icon. You know it's gone because one, it's no longer highlighted, and that red line's gone. So for now, again, if I were to click Stitches Complex, as I clicked it, it's now in the material here. It will automatically go into your channel. If I do this, it's just going to stamp it around like that. Control Z. So, if I were to zoom in, I can also change this, by the way, by holding Control, right click, and then moving my mouse around. I can left and right changes the size, up and down changes the hardness. If I were to, let me go ahead and change the fabric to be darker. That way it is easier to see what I am working on. So if I were to do this, it doesn't look quite right. Control Z. This is where you can go in. You can change the hardness manually here too as well. Go in and change the size jitter, flow jitter, angle jitter, position jitter. These are all randomness. Size jitter will make it get slightly bigger or smaller, and it has a random change depending on the value you give. Flow jitter is the opacity and how often. Angle jitter is the directional, and position is where you're actually putting it. You also have follow path, angle, spacing. You can also go up to the flow, size, minimum size, and so on. If you didn't want to use the previous examples, you can change them here manually. But let's change the spacing all the way to like 36, 47. Change it to 47. Let's see that. As you can see, you can also see a representative version of that. So now if I do this, there we go. That's a lot nicer. Now, maybe you don't want to do it this way. Control Z. You can instead, on the left side here, see this little pen icon? This is paint along path. If you hit the drop down, you can paint along path, filled path, erase along path, smudge along path. These are all great tools for later if you want to experiment, but for now we're going to sit with paint along path. For now, I'm going to click here, and as you can see, it is by default again. So I can hit delete, click back on the stitches, and go back over here. Click one, click twice. And as you can see, it is trying to follow a path. If I were to click here, it'll change the path. Control Z. So, what if you don't want, what if you're done, right? This is just it. You just want a straight line, and that's it. Hit enter. You can now create a new path if you'd like. But for this experiment, or detail, I'm going to go back to it. As you can see, it's back again. That's because I hit Control Z, and it's going back to my last action. So it's undid the enter button. You just hit enter again if you want, but for now, we're going to... Actually, yeah, well, I'll show you that. Hit enter again, and then I can click back on my path line to edit it again and keep going. So again, as you can see, doesn't look that great. Right click, change the size to something desirable, and then here's where it's great to help out. Hit follow path, and then mess with the spacing. Bring it up until it's the desired amount. That's a little too much, so I'll go back down. There you go. And then I want it to be as appearance as possible. As you can see, there are little little issues here. So I'm going to mess with the spacing again until I get it just right. There we go. I think that's pretty good. So now, if I click back on this, what if I want the stitching to go around the side? I'll click over here. As you can see, since I clicked follow path on, it will follow the path. You can also change it at any point. So if I click here, I can drag this around. But you might be noticing it might do this as well. So to better explain this, as you can see, it's a 90-degree turn. What I did was I clicked this twice and just double-clicked it. You can also do that action by clicking this button right up here. Toggle corner / smooth. So that is the basics of those. If I wanted to, I can also go up here and click erase, where I can erase this. And you're wondering, why is it only erasing the color? Why is it still look like it's there? If I right click, scroll back down, that's because I only am erasing the color. I'll click roughness and NRM. Then I can completely erase it. Alternatively, if you don't want to do that, because for example, if I go back to paint along path, the path is still here. If I move this, click here, and I move it, it still exists. It's just that in this spot, it's erased. That's because, again, it is from top down. It's the most recent action, essentially. There is also, I'll go over the other parts, but for now, we're going to remove this. I'm going to get rid of this layer by hitting delete and clicking on it and hitting delete. Same thing with this fill. So. Alrighty. So, in order to work on this model and give it a texture, I'm going to make it look like the Sackboy from Little Big Planet. If you don't know what that looks like, let me find a picture real quick. There you go. That's what a Sackboy looks like. I'm going to make that smaller. But basically, it is a brown character with knitting and a few other things. So I'm gonna use all the tools to make this character real quick. I'm gonna do that. So. How do I start with that? Well, one, I know it needs to have a material that looks like fabric. So, let's go over to the left side here. Oh, and as you can see, this popped up. This is the auto timer for saving my progress. If you don't want the pesky, annoying files, you can just hit file and save, and it'll go away. So, in the search bar, you can search up certain things. If you are not content with the available selection of materials, you can always search up free materials for Substance Painter. Alright. Let's see here. It doesn't look like denim, so I'm not going to choose that. Not going to choose cotton jersey. Fabric felt probably won't be the best either. fabric wool jersey. This looks like a good picture. This looks good enough. So again, not gonna drag it here. I like to make it easier on myself and drag it into layers. So starting off, this does not look like the character I want to work with. It's also changing the eyes and so on. What if I don't want the eyes to be fabric? Because again, they're like glossy. So, first of all, let's start with making it look uniform. Going to change that. Looks a little bad, so let me change the tiling. That seems good enough. Now we'll scroll down. Fabric color. Keep in mind, you can always put a color over this in the layers, but I can also easily just do this as well. Mess with the colors. And as you can see, this is going to be a little hard to do. There's also all this black waft, weft or whatever it's called. I'm not sure. So, instead, what I'm going to do, just get rid of the color and the rough, and I'm going to hit this add fill layer. So I'm going to use a mask as well. So just to make it easier, since these are both going to be affecting the same area, I'm going to hit this little filter icon. I'm going to double click to rename it. Base color. I'm going to drag these in. So now these are part of a filter. So you may be wondering, how am I going to make it the color I want? I can always drag this image onto here. So let me grab the file for it. Drag it on. Hit base color. And this is going to be just a projection. You can move it around, hit E, R, and W to move, E to rotate, R to scale. Now this, obviously, we're not going to keep this here. This is entirely to get the color. Now, to get the base color, the truest color, go from material back to base color. Click on fill. Right click. And next to the color, you can pin drop it. So drag it and drop it onto the character wherever you want. To get the best color for it, it's usually better to get a middle ground here. Grab that. I want to make it a little bit lighter. Now I'm going to click on this, delete because I don't need it anymore, and back to material. There we go. So as you can see, it looks a bit better. It's not exactly him. So I can click back on here, right click, and make it a little bit brighter, mess with the channels until I get kind of what I'm looking for. There you go. I'd say that's good enough for me. Now, I obviously don't want it to be affecting the teeth, the tongue, the eyes, any of this. So in order to change that, I'm going to click on base color, right click. Now you don't have to right click, you can also just click on the mask icon here. but right-clicking also shows you a lot more information. But for now, let's just click Add Mask. Now, there's two different types of mask. There are more complicated ones here that I'm not going to get into in this video. So for now, let's sit with white and black. Essentially, if I hit white, nothing's going to change. White is if I want to remove certain things. Like that. Right-click. Add a black mask. Now it's all gone. Now it only appears where I want it to be. Obviously, going through it manually doing this is very tedious, so I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is all the way on the left here, this little box, Polygon Fill. Now I can click it and get the polygons. I could drag it like this, which by the way, it does go to the other side. Be careful. Or I can swap it to Mesh Fill or UV Chunk Fill. Mesh Fill is the entire mesh. The entire, like, one piece, essentially. Or, let's see, UV Chunk Fill. Now, what this is going to do, if I click here, it's only going to fill that side. Why is that? Going back to the UV again. Now, I'm going to click off, just so you can see it better. There you go. It's because this entire thing that I just filled is one part of the UV. So it's going to fill anything that's a part of that. So I'm going to click back on the Mesh Fill. Clicked all of that. The little paw pads and nails and all that aren't covered, which is exactly what I want. Now, it may not be the same color later, but I want the material, so I'm going to click the eyebrows. As you can see, didn't affect the other one. That's because, a while back, turned off symmetry. You can turn that back on again. Eyebrows, ears, the ear fluff, things like that. And so far, you know, that's thing pretty good so far. So, go ahead and decide that maybe I want black nose. Hit fill. Right click. Go to the base color you want. And then again, I'm going to use layers. Or mask, I mean. I apologize. A black mask. I'm going to, with still being in Polygon Fill, select the nose. Want the nails to be black too. So I'm going to do that as well. Now, some models you work with, they're not as organized like this. So if you were to click this, it would do the entire thing. In those cases, you can manually change the polygons here. Or you can paint them manually as well. Still in the fill. Like that. This is where it's very important. I'm going to go over this real quick. Alignment. Currently in tangent wrap. Click UV. Size space. From object to texture. And now, if I were to go here, as you can see, it's not painting here. Until I click here. That is because, again, UV matters. It's separate. Makes it very easy to work with. Now let's go ahead and do the same for these nails. I'm going to keep the paw pad colors the same, because that does not matter to me. And now if we go ahead and look at this guy, again, it's not exactly him. As you can see, no eyebrows, no eyelashes. So we're going to take a stylist choice on that. We're going to, instead of changing the color entirely, I just want to darken these. If you go up here, this is the grayscale. Color selection. I'm going to drag it down here and click on the eyebrows and eyelashes. It's darkened them because, again, grayscale being black doing nothing, white doing everything, and everything in between. So I want them to be a little bit more darker, so I'm going to click on that. And then, on top of that, I want the eyes to be dark. If I click this, nothing's happening. That's because of how this mesh is built. So I'm going to zoom out, go back all the way up here, and select all of this. These are all the eyes for this model. So now, if I go back down, click on the layer just so I can see it easier, there's that. Now, let's say I want the material to be shiny. In the layer for the black, right click, roughness. I can do that, but then it affects that, right? So, instead, I can do another layer, fill. This time, right clicking, turning off color, I don't need the color, and just for roughness. Just make it very shiny. Then, again, add a black mask. The fill. And I'm going to go all the way back up here again for this. It may not look good here, but if you were to bring it into Unity, it would. If you were to bring it into Unity, all you'd be seeing is this, the base color. If you go to the roughness material and so on, you could mess with it there as well. Alright. So I've went over how to open up a project and make a new one. I went over the controls, and I went over the basic layers and materials as well. That's all the basics of Substance Painter, I'm not gonna lie. There's nothing more or extra to go about. The rest is honestly up to you. If you wanted to make a character or do extra stuff, you can always go about that and make it your own. There are more complicated things to do, but I'd say so far, this looks like Sackboy. Maybe it's not the best, but you know what? It's there. He's missing the zipper in the middle, which I could add with a material if I wanted to. But this is him. This is very obviously a brown cat that is made of fabric. Alrighty. I'd say we're done for this video. I'd say you should be fairly confident in your ability to open a project and move around and start painting. I did go over a little bit of stuff a little too fast, but you can always rewatch them if you wanted to. But I just want one last thing I just want to go over. There is fill layer, add your layer, fill layer, add a preset layer. This is stuff that's done for you already. Like I have, for example, Pool Toy Mayu. If I click that, it's gonna look a little bad here, so let me delete my work that I've already done. This is a normal map to make it look like it is made out of like fabric and sewn together. It has different things already preset and done. But this is a pre-done thing. This is mine. This is my custom one that I made. In order to do that, so to show you real quick, right click on any folder. It all needs to be in one folder to make this work. Right click, and go down to create smart material. So if you did something you liked a lot and you want it to be on other projects, you can create a smart material with it by putting it all in one folder. But yeah, I'd say you should be fairly confident. Alrighty, I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments. I'll try my best to answer them. Hope you have a great day, sweet beans.